Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. I am excited to welcome Sheila, Joan, and Brandi, who are all adoption social workers here at Adoptions from the Heart. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
So, the cool thing about these lovely women is that not only are they social workers, but they are also adoptive parents. And I always find it to be a helpful benefit to the bigger picture of what we do at the agency because they have the personal experience of going through this. And I think that when you're an actual member of the triad, it can help us in figuring out policy, structure, what works, what doesn't work, because you've been through it. So I thought it'd be nice for our community to hear from you and what your experience has been both professionally and personally with your two worlds colliding. So Brandi, why don't we start with you of what your experience has been coming to the agency, having had the experience of building your family through adoption?
For me, it's been really helpful, especially with the education that we give families. Our adoption was a closed adoption, international, transracial, and no education. So I really look at our education now and working with our families as a way that I can share with them how important it is now. My son is almost 23, and what a difference it would make to have openness, to just have had all the education and services that we have.
Do you find it helpful, Brandi, when you're counseling prospective adopted parents on the importance of education that plays into it? Because I know it can be hard on families because there's a lot of work that goes into application, education, home study assessment, and it can feel overwhelming. So I'm curious if you bring some of that into your counseling sessions.
Absolutely. I think probably every course I, just kind of like to remind folks that whereas I think we all just look at it as growing your family and it's a baby, in most cases for us, but it's a lifelong journey. I do think it's important to share some of the things that we've gone through with families to show the importance, even though as adults, let's face it, we're always growing and working through something, but especially with adoptees, I think it's really important to know that it doesn't stop. When your home study is approved, you're going to be constantly going through different phases with your child, and it is unique to adoption.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Joan, how about for you? I know you've been with the agency for almost 100 years at this point. And what has it been like for you? Because again, we're very proud here to know that we have triad members as staff. So I'm curious your side of things of how you bring that into the work that you do.
It's way back, and it was, I think, 1998, 99, when we first contacted Adoptions from the Heart as clients, looking as prospective adoptive parents. I was a social worker but knew nothing about adoption. So I came into it with a blank slate. I was impressed the way the agency handled things, our social worker and the support staff. It was a great experience. So when I had the opportunity and was offered a position here to do the same thing I had gone through with other families, I definitely used my personal experience to help adoptive families get through the process. All the ups and downs and the worries that they have, I had those, so I feel like I can relate to them. What was particularly important to me was working with birth parents and getting their perspective, because I too had a closed international transracial adoption. And so I don't know my daughter's birth parents. So I have learned so much in the last, 18 years, I guess it is now, learned so much about birth parents and what they go through. And it has helped me personally, help my daughter, things that, I didn't, we had education back then, but not to the extent that we have now through Adoptions from the Heart. So I've learned a lot personally, and it has truly helped me to counsel adoptive parents and to tell them more about how birth parent feelings and what they're going through and how important that is and should be to them and to their child. It's really been an amazing experience, right? I didn't see myself. I was older when I started here. It's amazing. You never stop learning. I really want adoptive parents to learn everything that I have over these years of working with birth parents.
Yeah, and Joan, I know that in the work that you do, one of the things I always appreciate is that you don't put your story onto others. You're very patient with adoptive parents that may go through a different type of journey. While you may offer support from a personal perspective, you're also very willing to let folks go through what they have to go through and support them through that. Because it can be very easy when you've been through something or have had so much experience with something to try to tell people how to feel, but you kind of do the opposite. So I value that in the work that you do. Thank you. So Sheila, you're always my go-to when it comes to education and what life is like post-placement. Your passion and dedication for what it's like to raise a child through adoption is valuable to this agency. Can you speak on what brought you to this space of wanting to work in this field?
Sure. I'm the opposite of Joan in that I also have a closed transracial international adoption of 2 children. I was living my life as a stay-at-home parent to those children. My undergraduate work is in education. So education's always my jam, my go-to. I love to learn. And I started seeing some real issues with my older child that I couldn't understand. They were just completely out of the box behaviors, anger and sadness, and just so opposite of what was the norm for that child's personality. And I started looking into it and trying to make sense of it and learning about adoption, because like both of my colleagues have said, there was not much education on parenting an adoptee when we were going through the process. And part of that is because there was not much knowledge about parenting an adoptee in the adoption community as a whole in the last 20 years or prior to the last 20 years. So I was scouring and looking and searching and looking for support and looking for resources at a time that I was desperate. That's kind of when I made the decision to go back and get my master's degree in social work, because I wanted to work in adoption and help other families not have to go through the pain and hardship that I went through to support my children. And I was just having a conversation with my husband saying, I didn't want to be a social worker. I wanted to be an adoption social worker. I came into the field in the last 4 years, an older parent, like Joan had said. So starting a new journey in the field in my 50s, helping my families by sharing, the obstacles and the challenges and the struggles that I've worked through over the years as an adoptive parent, so that hopefully they can take this knowledge and this opportunity to set themselves up to maybe avoid or sidestep, or at least have the ammunition to deal with some of the obstacles that they will encounter as parents of adoptees. Because to Brandi's point, this is a unique experience. As much information as we can gather ahead of time or as we're going through it will benefit ourselves and our children. Knowledge is always power. Parenting is hard, and when you're doing it right, it's even harder, is what I tell my families, because it really is incumbent upon you to figure out what you need to know to provide the most information and the most support that you can to your children.
Sounds like all 3 of you have gone through the process from more of a closed adoption perspective, and you have touched on the differences that you see in our agency and the program in terms of education for adopted parents. How about on the flip side for birth parents? Using your personal experiences and what you may or may not have been given or offered, what is your perspective on the services we provide to birth parents pre, during, post placement? And how does that differ from your personal experiences?
My first encounter with a birth parent was here at the agency when I was doing my internship. Being in a closed adoption, you have very little information, especially internationally, about a birth parent. My understanding and perspective was completely enlightened in just one of our early courses where a birth parent got a chance to speak. In the years since, in my own work with birth parents, it has just been completely transformative for me, just having their perspective, seeing who they are, seeing what they go through. And it's helped me in my role as a parent to my children to help them process the decisions that were made, how they got to where they are. Also just brought more humanity, I think, for me, just to understand, the whole story of what it takes for them to make this decision for their children, and to help them in that journey, in that process, in that decision making. And at times the decision is that they move forward with parenting, or they find other resources that, can assist them aside from making an adoption plan. It's just been transformative, like I said.
I agree totally with what Sheila had said. It really is transformative. I've learned so much from birth parents, and I have been able to think more about my own child's birth parents and what they must have gone through, realizing they had no support. It really makes me feel good that what we do at AFTH, all of the counseling, what we do, the support, and what their final decision is, whether it's to parent or to place their baby for adoption, they have options. And I realized my child's birth parents really had no options. To know that, it is a really good feeling to be able to offer support so that maybe they can parent, but they have that choice. And we know that with the counseling that we give, they're going to think things through and decide what is best for them. And it's a good feeling. And it's a good feeling knowing, once we're working with a birth parent, expectant parent or birth parent, that we're with them. As long as we're here at the agency, they can reach out to us, and they do. I have a lot of birth parents that, 18 years later, they're still able to call and tell us how they're doing. And that's just so important. Very important to see how they've progressed through that period of time. And knowing that also they get follow-ups with their adoptive family, whether it's visits or whether it's just pictures and letters, but 18 years of that makes a difference to them. And you can see that in them. And it makes me think of my child's birth parents. They don't have that knowledge, and how painful that must be not to know. And it's a great feeling. We have a lot of support, the different support groups we have for birth parents. That's just amazing. And they need that. And it really makes me feel good about our agency that we follow up, and it's a forever type thing. It's forever. They can call us with anything they need.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying. And I think there's a lot of similarities in our experiences. I feel the same way, that my son's birth mother probably did not have options, definitely not support, even just knowing where they are. Like Joan said, even if they choose not to have visits, just being able to have an update. I just think going through the process with birth parents has really shown me, I feel like, not that anyone is less important in the triad, but I feel like we should be the last priority. In my experience, only having gone through the different stages, and anytime I leave a course or support group or anything, I sometimes I just text my son and I'm like, you were loved, your birth parent loved you. And growing up, when he was going through rough patches, he would say, it was typically on a big day, like say his birthday or a holiday, he would say, I wonder, she's probably wondering what I look like. And now working with birth parents, I think absolutely she did. It makes me, very emotional. And we've since found out that my son's birth mother has passed away. Now seeing how important openness is, it really was devastating to know we couldn't thank her, or let her know. Now there's so much more opportunity to find people, but I definitely agree with these women and how important it is to have the support for birth parents.
It can be really hard because I think adoption still sometimes gets a bad rap in terms of adoption agencies, and that we're a business trying to make money. But everybody has to remember that, our particular agency was founded by Maxine Chalker, who's an adoptee herself. And the agency has always pushed forward with certain value systems that came from Maxine's experience of trying to locate her own birth family. right? And I think it's really important that people recognize we do what we do based off of the clients we work with and the amazing staff that we have. And people stay because of what we do here. And always going back to what's the bigger picture. Whenever we're trying to figure out policies, procedures, new ways of doing things, we try to keep in mind the adoption triad and what serves the best interests of our clients. You know, you all are phenomenal at what you do, and you being able to bring in your personal experiences has helped us phenomenally. You know, I don't have personal experience with adoption. I knew nothing of adoption before I came to this agency. And I know that I have my colleagues to turn to when I need like to fill my cup from a different angle, right? So I'll call Brandi, Joan, or Sheila when I need that AP hat, right? Because I don't have that. So it helps fuel what we do and the services we provide to our clients. Any final thoughts or words you guys would like to leave off with for our community to hear about?
I'm just going to say, as an adoptive parent, when you have questions, don't wonder about it. I know that I tended to do that when we were adopting, and I felt like I'm asking stupid questions and stuff, but I want them to call, text, whatever. When you have questions, don't wonder, just ask, because that's what we're here for, and we try to make this as smooth a process as we can, but we know there's the ups and downs that everybody goes through. We're here for you. So let us know your questions. And if we don't know an answer to something, we'll ask and find out.
One of the things that I wish I had known that I really do impart on my families pretty heavily now is build your adoption community and build it early. Because at the time that your kids need other people in their lives with a shared experience, you're not going to be able to make friends for them at that time. But if it's a part of their lives, if they're always within a community of people to whom they do not have to explain their situation, people who get it, people who share their experience, people who don't look like their parents, people who have family members that are outside of the norm, conventional family members. The more they have time with that community, the better it will serve them and the richer their experience will be, because there will be times that are tough for them. There will be times that they will have feelings and questions that you can't answer for them, that you can't solve for them, which is so painful as a parent to not be able to solve your children's problems. But if you've built that community for them ahead of time and they have trusted friends and other members of the adoption community that they know they can go to that get it, feel what they're feeling, that's going to be such an amazing resource for them. And that's your role to make sure that that's in place for them when they need it.
I would just add that I think also with the asking the questions and building your community, even when looking for outside resources, therapists, doctors, and everything. And that's something I think that is more available than it used to be, is finding specific, especially therapists that are adoption centered. And that there's so many more resources about your identity, which we do a lot of teaching about that in general. And I'd also just like to say, I don't know if it's the norm everywhere, because this is also my only experience working in adoption, but I love that we are able to work with both the adoptive parents and the birth parents and really getting to support both sides, because I think we can relate to the excitement that they're going through and also provide the support, maybe we didn't have or that we did and really loved that, but also getting such a respect for birth parents as well. So I think we're really lucky to get to do both.
Well, thank you all very much for sharing your stories, your experiences. I know I learn from you guys every day at both a professional and personal level, and this agency is truly lucky to have you. Our community is better because of you, and I know we look forward to the future of Adoptions from the Heart with you being a part of this community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and check out more episodes here at Adoptions from the Heart TV. Hey guys, if you are enjoying the content here at AFTHtv, please subscribe and hit the bell.